I am here with Christine McDannell, the CEO and co-founder of the Magnolia Firm.
Exactly. Yes,
And you're coming here. I know you're based in San Diego, but as we talk, you're sitting in Dubai.
I am. So yes, Dubai has always been one of my favorite cities in the world. So I figured, what the heck? Let me move there for the month of April. So I am here. I love it even more. Maybe I'll make a more permanent, semi-permanent move. I know, I'm in San Diego along, just like Greg is, and I've been there for 20 years. It's gorgeous. It's my favorite city in the world too, of course. But yeah, so I'm here, and that's nice. I design my life now to be able to work anywhere in the world. I've owned brick and mortar businesses where I couldn't leave San Diego. So yeah, that's where I'm
I,
at
I
now.
I love that, and it sounds like it's not something completely unique for you. I mean, I was reading a little bit about your bio, some of the different things you did. I think you talked about having was it coffee with Richard Branson in Paris and some of those different types of things. So you definitely travel, and you're not afraid to go live somewhere else for a period of time.
Never know. I lived in Amsterdam even with my tech company. Techstars took me out to Amsterdam to live there in 2018. And I was there for 3 months, 3 month commitment, and I stayed for five. So yeah, I love, having the freedom to live anywhere in the world, learn different cultures. I travel all the time. I love it.
I love it. Well, maybe just take a minute and help people understand what the Magnolia Firm is, because I think you have a really interesting background that's led up into this, and it seems like the perfect background to get you to where you are today. And I would like to talk a little bit about that, but I'm especially interested in the firm itself, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs out there will be as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. And hopefully I could give a little bit of exit kind of planning strategies during the podcast too, for those entrepreneurs that are building, not ready to sell, but like, what are those top three things that you really want to pay attention to and kind of put into place right now as you're building your company? So my background, serial entrepreneur, almost 20 years total. I was a little entrepreneur as a kid, selling candy bars and snow cone stands and all this sort of fun stuff. I swear I was born to do this. So it's nice to be able to live my passion. And I was exiting companies. I was running my own transactions. I didn't do the first because I didn't know how to sell a company. But once I saw how it was done, I was like, oh, I could just do it myself for every company I exit, which I've done. And so, yeah. And then fast forward to about a year and a half ago, I helped a couple of my friends sell their companies, kind of came on as a consultant because they knew I knew how to do it. And then they were just like, you got to make this official. So yeah, I launched the Magnolia Firm in 2021. Yeah, just a year and a half ago, and then brought on Khaled, my business partner, brought him in just about 6 months ago because I was
Mm-hmm.
so busy, so over. I mean, waiting lists for clients, and we work on the sell side, so we work strictly with the sellers. We'll definitely launching a division to help buyers find their perfect business acquisition. But right now we're mainly on the sell side, and
Sell
yeah,
side.
every day, yeah, it's never a boring day. I mean, we're helping people with one of the largest transactions of their life, right? And so it's really fulfilling.
And your background, I mean, I talk to a lot of people that say they're serial entrepreneurs, but you take it to another level. I mean, you've truly run and built and sold a number of companies and all over the place, right? It's. I mean, I was looking at your background, and it's like your first company, the cleaning service business that you built. I mean, outside of the snow cones and that life, but you built that up, very successful. Had a chance to sell that, but then it's like med spa, luxury car rentals, Christmas tree. It sounds like recycling. I mean, where does this come from? Like, I'd love to hear more about the inspiration and then that step of like, okay, I have this idea, but now taking an idea from, concept to actual execution to eventual sale. I mean, that's a skill set in its own.
Yeah. So, and I swear this is the truth. It's literally, I see a need in the marketplace. It's something that I'm looking for that doesn't exist yet. And I get frustrated. I'm like, well, I'm just going to start one. Like almost all the businesses, pretty much, except the ones I acquired that were already built. Like cleaning company, for instance, back in 2023, or sorry, 2003. So like 20 years ago, you'd call, I lived in San Diego, you'd call, they didn't speak English. They told me to put my dog away, that they wouldn't come in if the dog was in the house, they couldn't clean, just a multitude of reasons. They weren't dependable, they wouldn't show up, et cetera, et cetera. And it was frustrating. And I'm like, gosh, why couldn't a cleaning company like be cool and trendy and like, and be pet friendly? So it was fun to create a business from scratch. I was 23 years old, $300, and I had to clean the first year and a half. Like, don't get me wrong. And I hired a couple women that only spoke Spanish, and they, they were cleaners, and they taught me how to clean. And I obviously had to learn Spanish pretty quickly. And so it was a wild ride. And, we were pet friendly, and it was fun. So people loved that, because in downtown San Diego, a lot of people have pets,
Hmm.
and where, what are they going to do for the day to have their, and again, 20 years ago, house cleaning wasn't so mainstream either. It was still more like a luxurious, not everybody paid for house cleaning like they do nowadays, but we'd bring little dog treats, and we'd throw them, because some of the dogs didn't want to let us in, bribe our way in with some dog treats. And yeah, it didn't matter if they were in while we were cleaning. It didn't bother us one bit. But yeah, it was just this innovation. And the company's called Cleanology. It's still around. Same owner that bought it from me 15 years ago has it.
Hmm.
And we were called Cleanologists. So we weren't house cleaners. I didn't like that name. So like, kind of like Starbucks has terms that they just made up, things that they call things. I did the same. It's kind of like, yeah, we're cleanologists. And so that was fun. And same with the spa, Eco Chateau, San Diego. Colon hydrotherapy was always done in a like a clinical setting, very dated. And I thought, why does this have to be done in such like a clinical med setting, which technically it didn't need to be? So I'm like, why can't it be in like a luxurious, spa industry or location, look and feel, sorry. And also, why are most spas Asian themed? Why aren't they French themed? So ours was French themed. And yeah, again, just this like, I don't know, I think of these crazy ideas, and then I'm the crazy person that actually just does them without even doing research. That's the funny thing too. I don't do any market research when I launch any company. Same with the Magnolia Firm, because in order to innovate, I think you need to have blinders on from what the heck's going on in the industry in order to properly innovate.
Yeah, wow, that's there's a lot there. It reminds me, I have a quote I've used a couple times with my own team, and I've talked to some people, but it goes back to Henry Ford, and it talks about the I guess the invention of the Model T, and his thing was always like, if I talked to a focus group, I would have ended up having to get faster horses, right? And it was about his vision for what he wanted, and then the truth of the matter, the people out there in the market didn't even really know what they wanted themselves. It was like that true entrepreneurship, that visionary that was able to create that for him. But hearing you, what it sounds like you're like, superpower here is really around branding and taking something that already exists, but like tapping into the desire of what people really want, and being able to position this in a way that resonates with a different audience, right? It's so much of this is taking something that it's not housekeeping has been around forever, and there's cleaning services everywhere, but you tapped into something that was really unique, which was this dog friendly side of it, and this kind of moving away from the traditional sort of housekeeper type of terminology. And I think that's what most successful entrepreneurs are able to do, especially when they have consumer facing brands.
Definitely. And I love that you said that Henry Ford quote. That's one of my favorites. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you asked what people wanted, they would have said faster horses. There's no cars was not even,
Yeah.
so I love thinking that way. I kind of use that quote in the back of my head sometimes. But yeah, no, it's just, again, finding, the branding to answer that. I'm a marketer, like true and true, like that. I think that that's a skill set. I tell people, if you're a great marketer and salesperson, you could start any business in the world, right?
Yeah.
Any industry, because you're an amazing marketer. As far as the branding side, it's funny, I'm not super strong at brand, but I'll bring on some incredible, talented branding creatives, right? Like
Yeah.
like I didn't name Eco Chateau. They came up with 5 amazing concepts and names for me to choose from. And the irony is, my second runner-up was called the Magnolia House. I really wanted to name the spa. We named it Eco Chateau, which I'm really glad we did, because it was French and fun. But then my second runner-up was it was Magnolia House. And all these years later, and that was, how when was that? It was like 10 years ago. It was in the back of my head, like, I really like that name. So that's why I named my current firm the Magnolia Firm. I got to
Yeah.
use the word finally.
That's
So
right.
brand is important. Branding is important through your entire company.
You're probably one of those people that has like, 100 domain names. Every time you have an idea, you like register the domain, or you get an idea and you're like, I love this name. I'm going to find a business. Eventually I'm going to be able to use this. So I don't know if you are or not, but I know a lot of people that are
I
like that.
stopped. My
Yeah.
mentor just 2 weeks ago, Christine, he always tries to get me to buy domains. Oh, you need to get this domain. I said, Henry, no, stop. No
Yeah.
more. I've like unloaded a lot of them. I had too many.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Magnolia Firm, because I would venture to say the majority, not all. I think there's people out there looking to build sustainable lifestyle businesses, but so much of the entrepreneur dream that's been built in this country is this idea of, I'm going to start a company, I'm going to make it successful, and then I'm going to have this exit, and I'm going to go buy an island in Hawaii, right, or whatever it is. Obviously you handle, as you said, one of the biggest, most important financial decisions of a person's life. In many cases, people's identity are tied up into these companies. I think the idea of starting a company is kind of daunting, but people sort of get the understanding of, I got to market, I got to deliver a service, I got to find customers. But now selling a company is a whole different level of complexity and unknowns. I'd love to hear a little bit about the experience. I mean, when somebody comes to you, in what stage are they typically at?
They're in we deal with a younger demographic, to be honest, and I prefer that. So our youngest seller was about 23, 24 years old. The oldest we've worked with is 47, which is not very old. Average
Yeah.
age is about mid 30s of the people that are having their first exit. They've built, a company for the past 6 years, strong, profitable. These are the creators. They're the 0 to 1 million guys, or zero, after that, or 0 to 5 million in revenue. They're over it. They're ready for the next adventure. They want to get in blockchain or all that fun stuff. We've got 2, 3 sellers that's what they're going to do next. So yeah, they come to us and they're like, Christine, I wanted to sell yesterday. So these are like, they're ready. Like, I don't
Yeah.
ever get someone that's like, oh, we're thinking about it. Like, no, they're ready to go. And, you're right. It's kind of an overwhelming and daunting idea of like, how do I sell my company?
Mm-hmm.
Totally different game. And it's their first time selling a business. A, B, I guarantee it's very seldom they know someone that already sold a business. So they don't even have like colleagues or, people that they can ask like, hey, how did it go? Or what happened? It's pretty rare to know people that have actually exited a company. And even in my circle of 20 years of business, I don't know that many myself. I mean, I have a good amount now that have exited. And so you hear the stories, and I love hearing those stories because every deal is so different. But yeah, that's kind of how it runs as far as, where they're at in the process.
So when you think about somebody starting a company, or maybe who's recently started a company, and an exit is something that they want. That's their end goal. They're the builders, as you said. They like the starting point. They're not really interested about running a company, whatever it is. Obviously, there's financial aspects and drivers behind it. What are some of the tips as far as building a company to sell?
Great question. I got 3 right off the top of my head. Reputation above all else. Like, I would even say above profit, right? So if you just do whatever it takes to guard your reputation. I mean, we would comp out massages and free cleanings and whatever. Every business I've had, like, I want 5 stars on Yelp. I want 5 stars on Google. That is not, and this is back, like, we never bought a single review. I know now everybody's doing that, which is kind of frustrating. But back then again, it was hard to do that, and I refused to do that. So it's like 5 stars across the board. Just bend over backwards to make people happy. Like, you do not want, or if they are unhappy, which again, you can't make everybody happy. It's very difficult. So, respond, if they go on your Instagram and they're complaining about something, take the time to respond and address it. If you're just like
Mm-hmm.
leaving all these complaints online and unaddressed, a potential buyer is going to see that and be like, what the heck's going on? Right. And so reputation is number 1. Number 2 is profit, right? At the end of the day, when you're scaling, you're starting, you're scaling, you're reinvesting, you don't have any profit. We get it. Everybody gets it. That's about the first 2 years typically. But after that, then, when you're gearing up to sell, whether it's year 3, 4, 5, 5 years typically seems to be a sweet spot for a lot of people to have a healthy
Mm-hmm.
exit. And so, but when you're getting close to that, then you're going to tighten up and buckle down on cutting expenses and making sure your company is extremely profitable. Because that's what the sales price is going to be based on. That's kind of the foundation. And then, we can usually get more value if you have a great reputation and your team is solid and it's been there a long time. And what else? Just, yeah, I mean, just having a very clean. Oh, and then the third most important thing is not to have the business wrapped around you. Again, in the beginning, it is. That's a given. I know I I cleaned the houses, I did all that stuff, but you're going to work your way out of a job is what I like to say. That's what you're going to do, right? So you're going to start like handing off the hats, right? One after another. Okay, I'm not going to clean anymore. Okay, I'm not going to, answer the phones anymore and book the clients. Okay, I'm not going to do the books anymore. So pulling yourself out to about 10 hours a week. Again, nobody expects you to be like, oh, I don't work at all. I'm selling my company and I don't work a minute of the day. That's not true, right? Every owner is still going to be, checking in on things, maybe doing the marketing still. So yeah, if you're down to 10 hours a week legitimately, then that helps tremendously. That's the most of our sellers are at that mark.
Yeah, because obviously you don't want to buy a company that's so heavily dependent on the founder or the owner of the company that that once you transition, that person leaves the company, 80% of the business walks out the door. How do you buying companies look at that and especially in a services based business where, let's use the example of the cleaning service business that you had. I mean, you don't have contracts in place tying your client base. I mean, they love you. You have a great reputation. They continue to work with you. But, there is a risk that the second, you walk out the door that, a big percentage of that customer base walks out the door. What are some of the ways that you would overcome that? Or as a entrepreneur, you can put some guardrails in place to help protect that risk or at least that question from potential buyers?
Oh my gosh. So you just that made me think of a fourth little bonus one everybody needs
Yeah.
to do. Okay. So definitely recurring revenue. If there's any way possible to put some recurring revenue into your business model, please do it. Push it like crazy. Give discounts to get people on a recurring auto bill, situation in your business. And there's a lot of unique ways to do it. It's funny. We just did it because in business brokerage and M&A advising, it's like, well, it's commission based and it's, choppy, unpredictable revenue. There's no contracts. It's one-offs, etc. But we just launched the Rapid Acquisition Club, which is membership based. So our people that are looking to acquire a business pay $250 a month to be in our club, and they get first dibs on businesses that aren't even on market. So they can grab them, a lot of them at a discount. A lot of these are clients we can't take on for whatever reason, but they're great businesses. So because I kept preaching recurring revenue for other people. I'm like, how can we build a recurring revenue baseline in our own firm? And so that's kind of exciting. Recurring revenue into the contracts that you just mentioned. We do, it's so tricky because I get it. I'm a salesperson too. We have, in software, obviously it's month to month, right? It's like somebody signs up for your service, it's month to month. It's hard. It's more of a barrier to sales if you're trying to get them on a 6-month, 12-month contract, especially these days. But give them a discount, right? Because you're exactly right. If people can have contracts in place, whether 3, 6, 12, that will boost the valuation a little bit. Otherwise, we're going to look backwards at churn rate. So that's the other flip, right? So it's like, okay, fine, it's month to month, but how long have your clients been with you? What's the churn rate? So there's other data points that we can still use if you cannot get people under contract. Because again, in some businesses, it's very difficult.
Yeah. So how do you handle when somebody comes to you and they're seeking your counsel? What is the way you typically handle valuations? I know, my world, I come from a SaaS world. So recurring revenue is everything. Profitability typically doesn't mean much. Actually, in some weird ways, they look down upon it because they think you should be reinvesting in the business, right? So you have $1 million of ARR or whatever it might be, and you'll get some type of valuation based on that number. I know that like in the drink business, I've worked with some people in that space where for them, they look at it as velocity, store velocity. Like how often does your product move off the shelves within a store? And the idea is that whoever's going to eventually acquire you, whether it's InBev or one of these big beverage companies, they're going to fix your financial model. They have scale. You don't have to be making money. It's just, do people like your product? Do people like your brand? But then I would imagine that there's other business where it is a more traditional EBITDA based model where it's like, hey, are you profitable? Like, are you making money? How much cash does this thing spit off? Do you look at it from an industry perspective? Is it case by case? Like, how do you advise a client that comes through the door and is like, hey, Christina, I want to sell this company. I'm ready. How much is it worth?
Yeah, no, great. Let's deep dive into the SaaS model, right? I had a SaaS software company I was building for 3 years prior to the firm. Brought on two technical co-founders. I knew nothing about tech. I just was like, I'm like, let's do the hardest thing in the world and start a tech company, an internationally based tech company. Because I thought like, that's going to be my last rodeo, right? I've built and sold a bunch of companies. Let's just go as big as I can and call it a day. Definitely the hardest 3 years of my life. But to your point of the valuation being, when somebody's valuing a tech company, they actually, necessarily, they just want the reinvestment. They want to see the revenue growing, not so much the profit. That's typically more based on raising capital, right? So they're going to invest in the company, and you're exactly right. They want to see, top line moving up. They don't care about bottom line whatsoever. Here's your crazy valuation. I mean, I'm glad I did it during the heydays, because it was just, even during, I knew it was like absolutely mind blowing that my tech company was worth close to 10 million. We were raising on a $10 million cap. It's worth $10 million pre-rev. Like, we were 10 months in, like, it made zero sense to me. I mean, I rolled with it and we raised money that way, but I mean, I was like, what the hell is going on? But obviously those days on raising capital of those high valuations is long gone. And it's unfortunate because now we have, again, younger people, 20s, 30s in that game that come to me and they're like, hey, I want to sell my company, $10 million asking price. And it's like, cause that was their last capital raise a year or two ago. And in their head, they think it's worth 10 million because an investor gave them money based on that valuation. But I'm like, it's no profit. I'm like, I don't know if it's even sellable quite yet. You haven't made any revenue even. So yeah, that's kind of what's happening right now, is just unfortunate, and yeah, I don't even know how to, I'm sure over time people are becoming educated by learning through the school of hard knocks, but that's what's kind of going on in that realm.
Yeah, my dad used to always say, I'd always be like, I used to collect baseball cards when I was like, 10, 11, 12 years old or whatever it was, back when people collected baseball cards. And I'd be like, Dad, this baseball card's worth, whatever. I'd have this magazine that would say it. My dad would always say, hey, that thing's worth what someone's willing to pay for it. So
Yes.
if you find somebody out there that's willing to pay that, then you're right. That's what it's worth. But otherwise it's not worth anything. And I feel like that's probably pretty consistent with the business side of things, right? Like, hey, you can go ahead and say your company's worth $10 million. But if no one's willing to pay for it, then it's not worth $10 million, right? Like, I mean, there's a component of that that's involved here.
No, Greg, you're saying all my favorite quotes. I say that all the time. I've said that for years and years and years. Like, even when people argue when I list my own company for sale at some crazy price, because usually I go high on purpose, just because then there's room to negotiate, right? And even with my sellers, we'll go high out the gate. You test the market. Worst case, you lower it, because you never know. And even my mentors were like, Christine, you're never going to sell your spa for that. That's a ridiculous amount. And I'm like, look, my company, they're like, how'd you come up with the valuation and all this stuff? And I'm like, look, a company is worth what someone is willing to pay for it, and then it went full price within 5 weeks. So I love that quote. I say, and I've had people try to argue that quote. And I'm like, there's no arguing. It's the truth. A company is worth what someone's willing to pay.
Yeah. How often does somebody come to you and they're looking to sell their company, and you look at the numbers, you look at the market, you do your evaluation, and you say, hey, listen, it's worth this now, but let me just put my like business consulting hat and say, if you're able to do these things over the next 6 months, it could be worth this. Why don't you go back and fix your business a little bit, or work on your business, or you grow your business, and then we can get a much higher valuation.
Yeah. So we just reverse engineer. So I have, there's a magical number of like, oh, I want to sell for 10 million. I hear that a lot. So they're like, we're not going to sell until we can sell it for $10 million. And they do the math on like, okay, after I pay taxes, after, I can live on the difference, put in a bank account, get 10%, on an investment and just live off that money. So they've really thought it out, which is great. one person, he's 2 years into his business. He wanted to do within 5 years. He's clock tracking. Probably he'll be able to do that exit within 4 years if all goes well. So we just reverse engineer. Okay, you want to exit 10 million. This is where you're at now. What do you need to do to get there as far as revenue and profit? And then you just reverse engineer it. So it's actually not too tricky. And then again, remove yourself out of the business, have a solid team, keep your customers happy.
So, I mean, the software world is, the fancy, glitzy world, and creates all the tech billionaires and all those people. But there's so many brick and mortar style businesses or different types of, service based businesses that are bought and sold on a daily basis. I mean, I knew a guy who was part of a group that ended up doing a roll up around storage units. And I think they ended up rolling up, I don't know, hundreds of these storage units across the country and ended up selling for like $300 million. And him and
Is
his
that
group
iStorage? Is it Chris?
yeah, exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the same guys.
I
Yeah.
know, I know.
So there's a lot of ways to skin the cat, right? Of what people are looking to accomplish. I guess my question to you more than anything is, with your finger on the pulse, much closer than most people out there, listening, what are the areas that are hot? Like the hey, I'm going to start a SaaS company and I'm going to build it up to $20 million of recurring revenue and I'm going to sell to a strategic for $250 million or whatever it is. Like more of like hey, like anybody can probably go out there and do this, and there's a need for the market, and there's interested people out there that are buying these types of companies.
Yeah, no, so we're strictly in, I did some brick and mortars in San Diego because again, I'm in the community. I have friends, like, I have a place in my heart for brick and mortar because I have a lot of that background. And so, but they're harder transactions. I'm not going to lie, they're hard.
Yeah.
So, and especially when you're, under $1 million purchase price, when you're at like half a million, a lot of times they're faster transactions because people could come up with the cash very easily, pull a second, mortgage on their house or whatnot. So we strictly only deal digital right now. So,
Okay.
and I don't see that changing. And we don't even do e-com anymore because that sector is totally taken a hit. So we're doing digital marketing agencies. We're doing SaaS. We are doing SaaS, but they have to be profitable and at least 3 years in business.
Mm-hmm.
Digital PR firms, software integration companies. So like
Mm-hmm.
CRM integrators with like Salesforce and HubSpot. We've had, I think we're on our third right now. So that's kind of like those integrator companies are very hot right now. And then cybersecurity. So anything remote based, digital, anywhere in the world. So we have clients in different countries even.
Fantastic. And you said some SaaS, but a lot of services based business, which sounds really interesting. So who are the acquirers? Are you in a situation where, let's say I'm a digital marketing firm and there's a firm over there that specializes in Magento and I'm a Shopify expert, and I want to now have an offering and a customer base in Magento, or maybe it's even different where I have an offering in cybersecurity and there's a company over there that does CRM integrations, but I feel I can cross sell my cybersecurity. I mean, right, like strategic acquisitions, or that's typically the buyers here.
It's so funny. So and we're moving up markets. So I know that's going to change, right? But we still have, like, we sold 3.5 million. And this was a HubSpot integrator software, been around for 10 years, super strong company. And this was a first-time business buyer individual that bought it for 3.5 million with the SBA loan, and had $1 million to put down. But of course the bank makes money on lending money and he qualified. So like, hey, we'll give you the whole 3.5. Don't worry about that. And so they did. And what's funny was he keeps working in these businesses that are doing exactly what this, he's the guy that comes into these businesses and sets up their HubSpot integrations, right? Goes the next, builds it all out. So he's like, you know what? I'm sick of making other people rich. Like, I know how to do this. I want to do it on my own. And that's why he bought this business. So a lot of times these are actually individuals, but we have done some strategic. So a strategic will come in, acquire a smaller business like this digital PR firm. They wanted that kind of like a bolt on, right? We're doing SEO, they're doing PPC, they're doing all this other types of digital marketing, but they were missing the PR side of things. This is a 20-year, old PR digital firm, big clients. So they wanted to just like you said, they wanted to cross sell the clients, right? They needed that client list, essentially. That's mainly what they bought it for. And sometimes it's the acqui-hire, that's still hard to hire good people right now. So sometimes a strategic, somebody will acquire a company just for the team a lot of times too.
Nice. And you're at this point, I mean, I'm sure your job's running the entire transaction. You're packaging up the deal. You're creating any of the information about the company. The positioning statement. Is most of this proactive outreach? Going out there and thinking to yourself, here's a list of strategic buyers. I'm going to reach out to them, see if they're interested, or are companies out there actively looking, and they're looking on exchanges, and there's places where these companies are listed for sale.
Yeah, both ways. So I always love it's either, it's a reactive and proactive approach simultaneously. Like I call it guns blazing. I'm like, we're putting them on every single platform, and there are platforms globally of businesses for sale. We're going to write, I mean, we take 2 to 3 days just to write the ad copy on these
Mm-hmm.
businesses. I mean, it's so detailed. And again, it's marketing, right? So it's like, how excited, getting people excited about the business and all the details. And it's very clear cut and gorgeous data rooms with everything in it. Once they're qualified and they sign an NDA and we've spoken with them, we give them access. So that's very, we put these ads out, we get a lot of inbound. Okay. And our team's great about follow-up and really on the ball with that kind of stuff, all the inbound. And when we go live with the listing, we just get flooded. My team's on standby. They know they're ready. And then on the other side, you're exactly right. We go proactive. So we're going to have our seller give us a list of potential acquirers. We definitely have to be super, super careful reaching out. And that's why they bring us on, because we're that neutral third party. We're not naming the
Mm-hmm.
business quite yet. And then they'll also give us some of like, do not reach out at all, because they're going to know, we don't get along with them, or they're going to know it's us and they're trying to steal a client. So they'll give us a list of like, don't ever reach out. Hey, here's some possibilities. And then we go buy list also of possible acquirers. And so we're proactively reaching out as fast as we can to all of those too, because you never know.
Yeah, you never know. What does the process look like when it starts? Or maybe the question I'm asking is what is the expectation on timing from start to finish, and then how often are you seeing earnouts for the owners?
I try never to do an earnout. There's one right now. It's a small deal where it's like what is it, almost 300K purchase price. It's one of our small deals that we did not too long ago, and they want to do an earnout. So the seller agreed. I'm the one that protects my seller. I'm like, I never want them to do earnouts. Especially on a small deal like that one, right? So let's not use that one as example. Let's even use, larger transactions, if they're selling between 3 to 5 million. Again, to my earlier points, if you're not involved in the business and you're only working 10 hours a week and you got this killer team and managers and the team is staying, which you can write that into the purchase agreement. You could say, hey, contingent on your key people staying, then you can write off onto the sunset. Again, we'll use the recent deal, 3.5 million. There's no earnout. There's a little bit of money set aside in escrow in case any other extra bills come through in the next 6 months. Then my seller will get that cash. Seller gets to train, I think, 3 months, I think it is training, and then he rides off to the sunset. So yeah, I don't like doing earnouts. I'll avoid them like the plague. I've had friends that have done them. It's been nightmares. I see it firsthand. They leave millions on the table because it's that hard to watch somebody take your business over, and now you're an employee of your own company, and you're just, yeah, and you see what they're doing to the company, and you can't really have any say so in the changes that they're making or the people they're firing, or so anybody listening, try not to do any sort of earn out. Do a seller carry. So we'll do that. Sometimes
Yeah.
I'll up to 20%. I'll say, hey, seller upfront, I'll say, hey, like at most, I'm really going to defend this. I don't want you carrying back more than 20% of the purchase price. And let's say their walking price was 3 million. I know that, that they'll walk for 3, but we listed it for 3.5. Then of course, okay, fine, carry half a mil. You wanted your 3 anyways, you're going to get
Yeah.
it. Because just God forbid you don't get paid on it, but then you get interest on it. You could get 8% interest. You could get monthly payments for a few years. So it might be nice to have that cash flow. Maybe you're trying to qualify for a house or a loan. You could still show that monthly cash flow coming in. Because when you sell your company, everybody listening, and every time I sell one of my companies, I forget. I forget that it's actually stressful the day. It's funny. You see all the money come in your account and you think you're going to be relieved, but you have no more cash flow coming in. You don't have this daily cash
Right.
flow anymore. It's gone. So I actually get anxious almost. It's weird. I'm like, and then everything I ran through the business every single time, even recently, I'm like, you forget about that. You don't have that anymore.
That's right.
So then your personal expenses go up overnight because you're like, oh my God, my health insurance and my car and all this fun stuff I was running through that business. So yeah, those are just some fun tips that nobody really thinks about.
Yeah, it's the ultimate first world problem, right? Like, damn, I
I know.
sold my company and I can't run my like Lexus lease through the business anymore. Like, what am I going to do?
I know.
So anybody out there listening, when is a good time to reach out to you? Like, what, a lot of companies out there, a lot of people in the digital space, digital agencies, systems integrators. I mean, I could probably name 10 entrepreneurs just off the top of my head right now that own companies in that space that are between 50 to 100 employees. I'm sure that's probably a sweet spot as far as sales. When should they sell? Is this something that's like, hey, I'm thinking about selling in the next 3 to 5 years and I'd like to talk to you? Or is this something like, you know what, Christine, I'm ready. Like, let's make this thing happen.
Yeah, I mean, definitely when they're ready. Obviously, I'm happy to have a conversation anytime. Even if they're not at that exit price that they were hoping for, at least I can help them brainstorm, reverse engineer. How can they get there? Sometimes they have no clue what their business is valued. Either they've way overvalued it, but a lot of times also it's undervalued. We've had people come to me, one person in particular, again, smaller listing back in the day, but he would have taken 20K. I got him 200K cash, right,
Yeah.
within 2 weeks. So some people have no clue. They think it's worth less, right? And I could uncover the value that they're so in the weeds, right? So a lot of times they're, oh, I don't know. And then I can pick out the gems of like, oh my God, look at this, look at that, look at this. So yeah, anytime, whether they're ready now or they're gearing up, happy to speak with them. Let me talk about this point real quick too, that I try to teach people. Please do not, and I have friends that are doing this. I keep reminding them, do not just care about that exit price. Don't, like, they're so focused on like, I want to sell my company for $1 billion or whatever the number. I'm going to exit for 100 million. That's all they think about day in, day out, day in, day out. And like, all honest, and I've never had an exit number when I build a company ever. I just know, just build a super strong, just all you do is focus on building a super strong company, great systems, happy clients, and that exit will naturally come. So please don't even think of a number. But if you do have a number in the back of your head, which some people do, and you're working towards it, it is what it is, I guess. But in the I guess over time you'll hit that number. But from day one, you don't have time to think about this $100 million exit. Just get some revenue first.
I love it. All right. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about Breakfast in Paris with Richard Branson. How did that come about?
Yeah, long story short, and again, the full story's on my LinkedIn. It's as a blog post if anyone wants to see. There's some videos and pictures and the history of when I started wanting to meet him. I think it was like I've been following him for like 20 years, but and he's my favorite entrepreneur. And the reason is because he's like having so much fun,
Yeah.
and I love one of his quotes that it's not work and play, it's just like they're merged together. It's all play. It's not work and life, it's play. And like, that's why I'm in Dubai right now. And I'm working remote from Dubai this month because I think, or I know you can do both successfully and have that life motto. But yeah, I donated a small check to his Virgin Unite charity and years ago, maybe like 7, 8 years ago, probably now. Time flies. And then then he thanked me on the phone, which was really sweet. I couldn't believe it. Called my cell phone like immediately and to thank me real quickly, which is very cool. And then in my head, I'm like, gosh, I really want to write a really big check, like some crazy check. And Jim Carrey shares a story where he wrote himself a $10 million check,
Yeah.
wrote it out, and then he got that, that big role. I forget which of his big, huge movies, because he had so many. And it was a $10 million check, and he got it. And I thought of that, and so I did something similar and wrote the check out to the charity, and we had it on the wall in the break room of both my spa locations. I had it in my office also, so my team even knew it, and my team probably thought it was crazy. And only maybe like, I think it was like a year and a half later, I sold the spa and I knew I could cut that check. So yeah, I reached back out to Richard and I was just like, hey, I got another check for you, but I got a couple extra zeros on it this time. And just that's just my style. I'm so ridiculous. And then I just want to hand it to you again, like last time. That's it. I don't want anything from you. I just want to hand it, and that's it. And yeah, he was kind enough to be like, hey, I'm in Paris. If you want to come out here. And then yeah, we had breakfast, for like an hour, and it was just so cool. And he's so down to earth and loved it. And then I told him to his face, I'm gonna give him another check and I'm going to add another zero to it. And then which I am, but he blogged about it everywhere, tweeted, Facebook.
It's amazing.
My
Yeah.
friends were like forwarding it to me. So he like told the world, and he's like, I know she'll do it. Like, there's no doubt in my mind she'll do it, so I'm like, dang, Richard like believes in me. So I'll totally do it. But it was just funny. All my friends were like blowing up my phone. Like, I didn't know he blogged about it. They're just like, oh my God, he blogged about us, having breakfast together in Paris.
Yeah.
And just like the stuff we talked about. He was actually taking notes as we were at breakfast. He was jotting down things. And honest to God, I thought he was just like making notes on like what he had to do for the week.
Yeah.
He was making genuine notes about the conversations we were having. Yeah. So that's the story.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. Another quote, and I'll paraphrase it, that I like, and I try to live my life by as much as possible, is this concept, this idea of like, as you're approaching the end of your life, you're going to always regret the things you didn't do more than the things you did, right? So it's essentially take chances and live your best life type of thing. And I think you're one of these people that like truly, and I'm sure you have your own insecurities and fears and anxieties like every other human being in the world, but you seem like you live life truly without fear, right? I mean, it's like, I'm going to start these different companies. I'm going to go live in Amsterdam for 4 months and do an accelerator. I'm going to go spend a month in, Dubai. I'm going to, I've sold a lot of companies. I mean, yeah, I don't have my MBA from Wharton's, but I'm going to get into M&A and I'm going to help people. And it's like, I just love that approach where it just seems like you just go through life like kind of with like a high level of positivity. You don't have a lot of fear or anxieties of the results of things, and you just like crush things. It's awesome. It's a great philosophy to live life.
I love that. Well, I am jumping out of a plane this Saturday morning. I've skydived twice already in San Diego, actually, but it's been on my bucket list to do it over the Palm here in Dubai. So I recruit another guy in PE, private equity, serial entrepreneur. He's super cool. Met him out here this month, and we're hanging out all the time talking business. And he's like, I've always wanted to do it. He's never skydived. I'm like, no, let's do it. It's on my bucket list. So that's Saturday morning. So yeah, you could say I'm pretty fearless across the board.
I love it. All right, Chrissy. Well, hey, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing some wisdoms around the M&A process. And just, I think your philosophy in life is going to be inspiring to a lot of people.
Oh, awesome, Greg. I appreciate that. I hope it is.